intervention, as we've just heard, from federal police. Let's return to our top story about Brexit, the deal or no deal as it seems. Let's go live to London. We're joined by Marcus Papadopoulos, the editor of Politics First. Thanks so much for your time. What does this mean for Theresa May?
Well, I've just returned from the House of Commons and, my goodness, what an extraordinary day it was there. The atmosphere in the chamber was electrifying, and in the moments leading up to when the tellers announced the result, you really could have cut the atmosphere with a knife. But Theresa May has suffered an enormous defeat, the likes of which have not been seen since the 1920s in the UK, and she is now in a very, very precarious situation. There are options available to the Prime Minister, but they're not particularly viable. So, first of all, she could threaten the Brexiteers in her party with a second referendum, but that runs the risk of splitting the Conservative Party. She could ask the European Union for further concessions regarding the situation in Northern Ireland. But then the European Union has said on countless occasions that there's not going to be any further concessions. She could go for a no-deal Brexit, but my word, that would be potentially very dangerous for the UK economy. So Theresa May is in a very serious situation now. But it has to be said that, as she said in her speech after the result was announced, the House has rejected her withdrawal bill, but the House has not said what it wants. I think Theresa May is going to have to sit down with the Brexiteers and ask them what it is they actually want.
That is a very good point, because it seems to be that the British Parliament, in fact, the British people, know what they don't want, which is the EU in terms of the original vote, and now for Parliament seems to be they don't like this deal. But there doesn't seem to be much in terms of an alternative. So what is going on in the state of the UK right now?
Well, the British public is divided. The House of Commons is divided. Jeremy Corbyn, for example, the leader of the Labour Party, Her Majesty's opposition, he favours staying in the customs union. But then there are significant numbers of Labour MPs who do not share his vision for Brexit. So let's just say that Mr Corbyn, hypothetically speaking, wins the vote of no confidence in the government tomorrow, which he's not going to win, that vote. The government will survive because every Conservative MP will vote in favour of the government, and the Democratic Unionist Party MPs will vote in favour of the government. But let's just hypothetically say he was to win. Well, there would be a snap general election. Going by the polls, he would win. He'd be the next Prime Minister. But then he would be faced with the same situation as Theresa May is in. His vision for Brexit would be supported by half, or more or less half, of the Labour Party at Parliament, but the other half would not support it. So it's really anyone's guess as to how this is going to be resolved. But I think, once again, we have to give credit to Theresa May. She has shown great tenacity. Some people were thinking she was going to resign in the event of an enormous defeat. Well, she's not going to resign. She's made it very clear that she's going to deliver Brexit. She's a very conscientious politician. She takes her job very seriously. But as I said moments ago, I don't see how she's actually going to be able to convince those 118 Conservative MPs who voted against her in the Commons today. It's an extraordinary amount of MPs from her own party who have turned against her.
Well, normally, of course, this would lead the PM to quitting or perhaps a general election, as you say, but Theresa May seems to be made of Teflon. Speaking from an Australian perspective, it feels like whenever we say Theresa May's name over the past year or two, it's been she's on the last legs, will be leaving or will be rolled at any time. We saw that there was that leadership motion that wasn't so long ago. She survived that. And this, despite the fact that it doesn't seem that British Parliament will change their mind. The Commons on Brexit, she will no doubt, as you say, survive this no confidence motion that happens tomorrow. So what is the point of all this? Is it really just to say that the nation is divided on the issue of Brexit, that some people want it, some people don't? It seems to be towns, cities, pubs right across England that seem to be divided on this. What's the point of it all, given that we're just a few weeks away from it actually happening?
Well, that's a very, very pertinent question to ask. And I honestly don't think that even the Brexiteers within the Conservative Party at Westminster truly know what they want. Of course, they want Britain to leave the European Union. But as regards the finer details, they haven't been forthcoming with them. They haven't put forward an alternative to Theresa May's deal. So therein lies a very serious problem. How can this be resolved? Now, the fear for the Conservative Party is that if her withdrawal bill is rejected again by the House of Commons in the next few weeks, then that really could lead to Mrs May being replaced. And in that event, it's just possible that there could be an early general election held. But that would be a nightmare scenario for the Conservative Party, because they know that, going by the polls at the moment, that the Labour Party, led by Jeremy Corbyn, would win. So I don't think anyone really knows how this is going to be resolved.
Well, talk to us about the EU, because they must be watching very closely, as I say, not far away now. What would they be thinking of all this? Is there a bit of sniggering going on here, or are they as concerned as everybody else?
I wouldn't say sniggering. I think they are extremely frustrated. I think they are extremely annoyed. And whilst I'm not a fan of the European Union, I do sympathise with them, because Mr Juncker did say tonight, after the House of Commons rejected Theresa May's Brexit withdrawal bill, he said Britain, the British Parliament has rejected it, but the British Parliament needs to say, what does it want? Now, of course, you know, the two parts of the Conservative Party are saying different things. Two parts of the Labour Party are saying different things. So there really needs to be a single voice. I mean, perhaps what's going to happen in the next few weeks is that Theresa May is going to have to sit down with those Brexiteers within her party, and that's going to be a, you know, an awkward sitting down that she's going to have to go through. And she's going to have to say to them, what is it that you want? Because if you were to replace me as leader, do you think you're really going to gain any more concessions from the European Union than what I have? I mean, that's what she's going to say. And of course, the European Union is not going to jeopardise the fundamental pillars of the bloc for Britain, and for that matter, for any other country. So I think the European Union is now waiting to hear from the UK what it actually wants.
I think we would all like to hear what the UK actually wants at the moment. Marcus Papadopoulos, thank you so much for joining us here on Sky News today. Now, the Prime Minister is heading to Fiji and Vanuatu to strengthen Australia's relationships with our Pacific